I know a lot of beginners are scared to start high-ticket dropshipping, but the truth is, our most successful members just...
The fear of not knowing anything about dropshipping is real for so many people, but the only way to overcome this is...
When you're worried about financial risk, it's easy to just get stuck in your own head. But what if I told you that...
And by doing that, it's both simple and it also means that you get out of your own way.
You get out of your own way. We follow a method where your investment is guaranteed to pay off as long as... Welcome to the Dropship Unlocked podcast. I'm Lewis Smith, the founder of Dropship Unlocked, and with me is our client success coach, James Eardley. Now, when we're not recording podcast episodes or running our own e-commerce businesses, you'll find us helping aspiring entrepreneurs launch their own high-ticket dropshipping stores. So if you're ready to build your own 6 or even 7-figure online business, then head over to dropshipunlocked.com/start. Now, sit back, relax, and let's unlock your potential with the Dropship Unlocked podcast.
Today, Lewis and I are going to be tackling one of the biggest barriers that holds new dropshippers back, and that is fear. Whether you're feeling afraid, a bit scared that you won't be good enough to succeed if you start your own e-commerce business, or if you've never run a business before and you just have no idea where to start. We've all been there. It's such a common feeling. So today we're going to dive into how to overcome that. So Lewis, what do you think are the most common fears that you see beginners face when they start their dropshipping journey?
It's probably the inner fear, isn't it? The personal fear of maybe not being good enough to succeed. A lot of beginners, I think, doubt themselves. That's only natural coming into this because perhaps they haven't done it before. I think the truth is, though, that there's nothing different about successful members compared to anyone else. They don't have any special skills necessarily that make them succeed or any special backgrounds. People have succeeded in our program from all different levels of experience and backgrounds. It comes down to the fact that they simply took action. So I think another is the fear of not knowing anything about dropshipping. This is something that we all faced when we all first started. If you think about it, nobody came into this knowing what dropshipping was. The key is to committing to learning and being willing to open your mind to new ideas. And yeah, dropshipping, like any other skill, is a learnable skill. With the right training, you can absolutely succeed. And other than that, I'd say it's probably the fear of maybe never having run a business before. Many new dropshippers that come into this are starting from scratch. Sometimes it's their first business. They may not have experience, managing like taxes and business bank accounts and supplier relationships and things like that. But I guess that's the power of the internet and platforms like Shopify. The systems that we teach are designed for beginners, and you can absolutely learn those from people who've already done it and set it up successfully so that you're not trying to piece it together yourself.
Yeah, I resonate with all those fears, and I've got a bit of a theory as to where they come from, and it's the need for certainty that a lot of us have, and I certainly had that. My personality is, I'm learning about myself recently about that need for certainty or need for structure. And so when you jump out of your comfort zone, it's out of certainty into uncertainty. And you have to really embrace the fear of doing something that you've never done before. And you've really got no idea of how you'll be in that environment. So did you feel those feelings before you started dropshipping, that fear of not knowing if you would be good enough to succeed?
Yeah, of course. I think the way that I personally overcame it was just immersing myself in the environment. And I say environment, it was sometimes like through podcasts, through YouTube videos, through books, things like that. But the kind of the mental environment of other people who had succeeded or were doing the thing, because then the voice of, can you really do this? Does this really work? Will you be good enough? Gets quieter and quieter and quieter as the other voices of, I'm doing this successfully. I have used this model to move to Thailand, and like people talking about that in the 4-Hour Work Week and different podcasts. And just after a while, it almost felt like the odds were stacked in my favor. So I thought, well, so many people are doing this in my world now, even though I'd maybe not met any of them at the time. I was just so immersed in the content that I had such strong belief now. And it wasn't based on like one shaky idea or one video that I'd seen. It was based on so many different people that I just thought, well, I'm definitely going to figure this out. So yeah, absolutely. I can resonate with that. And that's how I personally tackled that one.
Yeah, it's the only way. I think you have to like get social proof, get bombarded with people that you know are just like you, that have achieved what you want to achieve, and that then gives you the belief that if they can do it, so can I. And I was doing this thing recently. I don't know if you've come across it, Lewis, but the 16 personalities test, where you kind of get a feel for how you are as a person. And I'd be interested to see how it impacts different personalities. But the overarching thing, no matter what the personality you've got, is that need for certainty, which is very human, and that's where I think a lot of this comes from. So my personality is the ESTJ type, which means I need the structure. I'm very much, and I like processes, systems, way of thinking, reliable, on time, those sort of things. But then also that need for certainty can then hold me back. The weaknesses of this is that it's not as innovative, not as fast to pivot, not as fast to change, even if you're in a position that you're not super happy with. So it's a fascinating way of looking at it. If you know yourself better, you can start to see these patterns come up quite a lot. And I think for me, people like me, if they resonate with those feelings, if you're in a job that you just really don't enjoy, it's so easy to get stuck in your ways because it's certain and it's easy, and the fear can take over and tell you that it's more important to be certain and be safe rather than get out and do things. So it took a lot for me to jump into a program, build a business, and change my life. I don't know about your personality, Lewis. Do you think certainty is big for you, or are you a bit easier to innovate, pivot, and try new things?
Yeah, I'd have to redo the test. I did it a few years ago. I can't remember what my exact, which bucket personality type I fell into. I'll have to redo it. Maybe we should do an episode on how our two personalities kind of combine at Dropship Unlocked, and complement each other, as I'm sure they do. And a lot of the characteristics you mentioned there, I can see in you as well, in terms of like you're very process driven, you're very systems driven, you're very punctual, like those types of things are very clear. And I think, yeah, to an extent, we probably all like certainty. I don't think anyone would say, I just love uncertainty. That's it seems to be almost like a human need to know that, like, okay, I'm sure tonight I'll have a roof over my head. I'm sure there'll be enough water to drink. I'm sure. So to a certain extent, I think that's probably quite a primal need, isn't it? But yeah, I can certainly safely say that I'm more comfortable when I know for certain something's going to happen. But I think since 2017, since I first got into a business for myself and the online world and e-commerce and all the rest of it, I've probably become more and more comfortable with the unknown, purely because I know the feeling of venturing into the unknown quite well now, because I've done it so many times, whether it's with new business ventures or just new things that we're doing in those businesses. Over time, I think I've become comfortable with the uncomfortable. And I realize that usually when you're growing is when you start to feel the least comfortable, because you're venturing out of your comfort zone. Like you said, it's into the unknown. And if you can become okay with that and enjoy the journey and know that it's okay and that other people have trodden that path before, I just do the same thing now. I just try and immerse myself with other people. I mean, the internet is such a gift from that perspective, because if you were doing all of these, running ads on different ad platforms, contacting suppliers, and you had no idea how to do any of this, you'd feel so alone trying to figure all of this stuff out on your own. But you can now just look up examples of people doing the exact thing that you're trying to do. And usually there's content or a program on that specific thing. It can just make you feel so much more supported. So I think that's probably the antidote to that dislike for uncertainty. I imagine it's just, again, it's like surrounding yourself with people who are doing the thing that you're uncertain about.
Yeah, agreed. And also on that personality subject, and knowing yourself better really helps you make these decisions. So if you get that self-awareness where you understand what your strengths and weaknesses are, a lot of the solution to that is getting around the people that complement your weaknesses with their strengths. So for me, when joining a program and starting a business with zero e-commerce background, but I knew I had energy, and I knew I was I'm the sort of person that will execute on tasks that are given to me. So I just needed to be given that structure of do this, do that. And I was just a ball of energy ready to apply that energy into the structure that I needed. So for me, then I needed to fill that gap with the structure. And also I needed to fill the gap with, because I stick to my ways quite easily, I needed to be constantly challenged, good feedback loops, and being told that this is now the time to sign a new supplier. Don't just stick with the base you've got right now. Or this is now the time that you move into search text ads because you've got this data coming through now. So it's so important to get around people, no matter what your strengths and weaknesses are. And maybe that applies to the other way around as well, Lewis. If somebody's very quick to pivot, opposite to me, they would then need the grounding of consistency, and they would need somebody that's great on their back every week, holding them accountable. So you can see how it works both ways depending on which personality type you've got.
Yeah, exactly. I think, yeah, whether you're someone that likes to be given those kind of systems and processes and steps and be a very kind of orderly set of instructions in front of you, or like you say, if you're someone that's just more creative and wants to be more dynamic and fluid with it and, figure it out through your own trial and error and learning and pathway, like either way is fine. It just depends on what you need. And if you can surround yourself with a group of people that are doing the same thing as you, you're going to find the right kind of people that you can gel with and bond with and make friends with and kind of learn that journey together as you go, rather than just having to kind of do it in isolation, which is difficult regardless of your personality.
Yeah, I agree. So people is a big one, big factor, and playing to your strengths and getting other people to plug the gap of weaknesses really helps. And understanding that uncertainty is going to be a natural human desire to avoid. So another thing that holds people back, Lewis, is the financial investment. So committing financially and with time to starting a business, and they don't have the proof of having done that in the past that it's going to pay off. So how would you advise someone who comes to you and they've just got this big fear around financial risk when starting a new dropshipping business?
Well, I think zooming out helps in terms of what is the financial risk that you're worried about? Are you worried about like the kind of short-term risk of, paying for a training program or something, for example, or paying for some ads or paying for like some e-commerce software that then might not work out? Or as I did, are you more worried about the potential financial risk of always being stuck financially and with your locked into the trap of trading your time for money consistently through a job that maybe you don't love? I think that's the kind of the bigger financial risk. If you zoom right out, the bigger financial risk is that you go through the rest of your life without being able to control your own source of income, rather than the risk of like, okay, I might, try something and it not work out immediately and I spend a bit of money. So for me, yeah, that was something I had to come to terms with, and also understanding the true cost of inaction and not doing anything. Like the longer that you wait to start, the longer you delay the financial freedom that could then come from building the business. So sometimes the bigger risk is not taking any action at all. That's the biggest financial risk, which is interesting because it takes a bit more perspective. You have to zoom out a bit to see that risk. Otherwise, if you're just looking at what's straight ahead of you, it might look like the risk is doing the thing. I'd argue the risk is not trying the thing, because then you'll never know. I'd say investment in yourself is the best kind of risk as well, because you can control it. When you invest in your own education and your learning, the payoff isn't just about money. You're investing in becoming the person who can handle challenges, who can deal with that uncertainty we talked about, and ultimately who can grow a successful business. The nice thing I think about having those skills where you've invested in yourself, you've joined a training program, you've built a business, is that no one can then take that skill away from you. No one can erase your memory of like how to build the business. You then have that. It's like, it's yours, isn't it? That's your skill set to go through life. So you then know that you've invested in your own future financial security. Because if for some reason this business doesn't work out that you've built, or you sell it, or whatever happens later in life, you say, I wish there was a way of generating more finances. Oh, I know how to build a business. Like I learned that already. I'll just apply the same thing again. So I think it's a great like insurance policy. You're investing in your future self. Yes, there's a cost to starting, but the investment is guaranteed to pay off in personal growth and business development, if not financially. It then comes down to taking action to make sure that you do the things that are required to get there. But if you understand the steps and you understand like the whole process, then no one can take that away from you. I think that's extremely powerful.
Yeah, because a lot of people want a guarantee when they're going to invest financially. If you want a guarantee, the investment you make in yourself is a guaranteed payoff, because you will become a different person when you invest into education and learning. And like you say, Lewis, no one can take that away from you. And another way that I get around financial risk and that in your mind is, what would your future self do when faced with a potential opportunity to invest in themselves to grow? And if you view yourself as in the future as somebody that's, I don't know, 10K a month, e-commerce store business owner, takes their family out for dinner whenever they want, whatever your goals are, lives abroad, travels around the world, that person, if you ask them and put them in the same position that you're in today about getting started, investing in yourself, what would they do in that situation? What's the person that you want to become? What would they do and act in that situation? I think that gives you a bit of perspective as well, as zooming out and thinking about the actions that they take. I think it's a powerful concept, Lewis, getting an idea of who you want to be in your head and acting like that right now, even though you're not that person yet.
Yep. I still do it to this day. Every morning, get my coffee, sit down, go through what my 5-year goals are, what those are, read them aloud, see them, visualize and feel them. And then throughout the day, I find myself doing things where I'm like, I might hit a dilemma, like a fork in the roads. Like, for example, oh, it's been a long day. I've done a lot of work today. Do I really go to the gym? But then when I see the 5-year ahead version of me that I embodied mentally that morning and read their affirmations of, that said, like, you're the fittest, strongest and healthiest you've ever felt. I'm like, well, I'm not going to get there in 5 years time if I don't do things like go and maintain that strength and work on that in the gym today. So I get up and go naturally, because like the future version of me is telling me that I should. And it's the same thing with business. It's like, do I call that supplier? It would be so easy to just say, no, I won't bother doing that. It's been a long while. Maybe I'll try them next week. But when you've embodied the future version of yourself that has 50 suppliers, that has a 100 grand a month store, of course you call the supplier, because it's just a step in the right direction to becoming the version of you that you've already mentally embodied. So it's it's a great way of doing it. It's a great psychological advantage you can give yourself.
Yeah, it's huge. Something I've learned from living in Bali for the last 2 months, back now in the UK with the English brick behind me. It's a good sight. It's nice to be back. It was also what I learned from over in being in Bali was some incredible lessons about investing in yourself. You probably experienced this when you were in Bali as well, Lewis, so perhaps it's come on more now. But there's almost this competition going on in Bali of who can invest more in training programs. And it's a flex, being like, I've invested this much in myself over the years, and I've just bought into this program. And it's a very, very different mindset from actually people in the UK. And it's not a flex to necessarily to invest in programs, but we can learn something about that mindset. And I'm not going to be this person that's like this changed person after spending a few months in Southeast Asia, but I've definitely started to embody that person, because the mindset shifts are huge, Lewis. Don't know if you saw any of that when you were in Bali.
Yeah, you've swapped the Indonesian palm trees for some good old trusty English brick behind you there, but you've brought some of that Balinese mindset with you. I like it. I think that's true, isn't it, of a lot of other parts of the world, in the US and in Canada, and certainly in parts of Southeast Asia, where you've got a lot of maybe like American expats or even British expats. I think perhaps it's something to do with the weather, perhaps it's something to do with like who you're surrounded by, the environment maybe at times feels a little bit more inspirational, I don't know, uplifting. And there's certainly, like you say, a pride in investing in yourself and your own personal development. And I think there's a balance there, isn't there? Because you don't want to be the guy that just joins all the masterminds and signs up to all the courses from a status perspective, so you can say you're part of them, but then they're like, well, did you actually do anything? And it's like, well, no, I never built the business. I'm a member of all these things. I'd much rather you sign up to one and actually commit to it and do it, rather than go around kind of flexing, like you say, that you've invested in yourself in so many different ways. But yeah, I think there's definitely a kind of a pendulum swing towards that mentality, and actually I think that's a really good thing for society in general. Like, rather than this kind of tall poppy syndrome where someone starts to rise up and like you chop all the tall poppies from the field, or for example, if you what do they call it, like crabs in the bucket, like one crab's trying to escape and create a better life, and all the other crabs try and claw it back into the bucket so it can't get out and it can't find a better life. I think that's a really toxic mentality, and unfortunately that's something that is quite prevalent. However, I think the world the world is shifting. People are opening their minds to the fact that they can create a new life for themselves, and good on them for doing so. I think it's a great thing to discover.
It is. Yeah, because going back to the subject of the podcast, that the fear, everyone has to break through that fear at some point in order to build the life they want to build. Because if you want to achieve something you've never achieved, you've got to be a different person. You've got to do different things that you've never done before. And there's innate uncertainty in that. But yeah, the Bali lifestyle, what I also learned, I want to share on the podcast as well, when it comes to fear, is that you're just a product of your environment and the people that are around you and the thoughts that they feed into your mind. And so the difference with that in Bali and getting around high-level entrepreneurs was, if you go out there thinking that you want to get to 50K a month, for example, or 100K a month with your store, and then as soon as you talk about these goals with people, and then they tell you about £1 million a month or 500 grand a month, and you realize that actually the goals that you'd set or you decided were big in your mind are very small in others, and it's this constant reimagining yourself, reimagining the goals, imagining what's possible for you when you get around people like this. And it's very, very powerful. And a great way of thinking about this as well is the experiment they've done with ants, which you probably heard and come across, Lewis, but they draw with biro pen around an ant on a piece of paper, and the ant won't go outside of that piece of paper. But as soon as the person accidentally drew too close to the ant with the biro, the ant's leg went over the paper, and then it escaped the circle. And then no matter how many biro lines you draw again, it will never be confined by that biro again. And it's that experience of leaving the comfort zone, building a business, and never being confined by what your previous fears were before. I think there's something in that. But what do you think it would take for you? What was your moment of the biro getting too close to your leg so that you could get out of your own way and build a business?
Yeah, I think the belief for me, it's a great analogy. It came for me before I even saw proof myself, because I'd heard proof from so many other people. And maybe that's down to my personality. But yeah, I remember sitting in the dull, grey, uninspiring meeting room, at the old corporate company that I used to work at, and just having listened, I think having read the 4-Hour Work Week, having listened to podcasts about e-commerce and digital nomadism, and just being like, this is it. I'm doing it. I'm going to figure this out now. I don't have the answers, but I've finally found something that I'm passionate enough about to pursue, regardless of whether it's a challenge or not. I'm going to make this work. And it was just almost like that, giving myself permission to do it. Everything then just fell into place. And I guess that was like an early form of kind of manifestation, where I'd become the person that I knew I was eventually going to be. And it was then only natural when I made my first sale for £690 or whatever. And I was like, oh, well, great. That's the first one, but bring on the next 10,000 sales, because I'd become the person at that stage. So yeah, I think for me, it was quite early on. And once, like you say, once the ant has stepped over the line of biro, once you've shattered the limiting belief of, I can't possibly earn my own income outside of someone just giving me a salary in my corporate day job, suddenly you're like, oh, well, if I can do that, I can do anything. I can build a different business. I can scale this business higher. I can, and it create it, like you say, it just kind of unshackles you. Hence, Dropship Unlocked. Clues in the name.
Yeah, that's it. It unlocks a new person, unlocks new environments, unlocks new success that you never had before. So yeah, whatever way you want to look at it, it's going to unlock or get you out of the fear that you've had initially when you join something like Dropship Unlocked, and then you can go on to build and achieve the goals that you've got. Not just us, not just us have been through this process. We spoke with lots of members now on the podcast who have been through similar stories. A great example of that is Suraj, who joined us on the podcast on episode number 99. So if you want to hear about how somebody else has overcome fear and achieve their goals, and he talked about mindset in that podcast, then that's a great one to listen to straight after this one. So before we finish up on the episode today, Lewis, for somebody that is starting out, has a fear, but is starting to get around to the idea of wanting to start and build their own business, especially after listening to today's episode, what would you suggest they do? What would be your final advice for them?
Yeah, just take action. The first step is always going to be the hardest, but it's always the most important as well, because as soon as you've taken that, you then have momentum, you're moving. Don't wait until everything's perfect before you take that first step, because you'll be waiting forever. Just take the first step, whether that's choosing your niche, setting up your website, whatever it is, and try and start with the basics as well. be consistent, take a little step every day, focus on the fundamentals. So building a store, choosing the right suppliers, setting up your ads. The key to all of this, though, is consistency. It's all very well, going crazy and spending 8 hours in a day working really hard trying to do this and then giving up because you burnt out the next day. You've got to do a little bit every day, chip away at it, and just keep working through the process, even when it feels tough, and especially when it feels tough. The other thing you can do, as we talked about today a lot, is get support and surround yourself with a community of mentors who've been where you are. It just makes the journey a lot less overwhelming, and it gives you that support system around you that'll help you push through the tough times that will be there. Just accept now there are going to be tough times. Okay, well, do you want to face those tough times all alone in isolation without any answers? Or do you want to be surrounded by a group of people that have been through those tough times, figured out the answers, and can help you on the other side of them? So if anyone wants to get started and break through those fears with us, head over to dropshipunlocked.com/start. We've got everything you need to begin your journey right there.
Are you enjoying the podcast? We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment or a review and we might feature it in an upcoming episode. And for detailed show notes and resources, visit dropshipunlocked.com/podcast.
If you found value in any episode of this podcast, please could you take just 10 seconds to leave us a quick 5-star review on your favorite podcast app? It helps us more than you can imagine. And who knows, you might just hear your comments read out on the show. Thanks for being a part of our community. Your support helps us keep delivering new episodes to you every week.
Now let's answer a question that we've had in from a listener of the podcast. So remember, if you've had any questions come up in your mind while listening to today's episode, then all you need to do is comment beneath the YouTube video version of this episode, and we won't just answer it in the comments, we may also feature it on an upcoming episode. So that's exactly what Robbie Mann has done, Robbie Mann 273. He left us a comment to ask, I'm new to dropshipping and feeling overwhelmed by all the steps involved. What's the first thing that I should focus on to get started?
Thank you for your question, Robbie. And I can absolutely empathize with you in terms of the feeling of overwhelm. It's certainly something I felt, I know James felt, and many of our members felt as well when they first started. The best solution to overwhelm, in my opinion, is to just focus on one step at a time. Don't worry about looking at where the finish line is at the end of the marathon. Just focus on putting one foot ahead of the next and running the race. That's all you've got to do at this stage. Every single step you take brings you closer. And before you know it, you're there, you're at the finish line. You're like, how did I get here? But it's not the whole time you weren't just thinking about that. When you're starting out, the key is to break things down into those little steps and just tackle one thing at a time. Now, it's easier said than done. So what we've done is that's why we created our Dropship Unlocked Accelerator, which is like our entry-level program. And what we did in there is created what's called the challenge, the launch challenge. So when you start, and you can get a 7-day free trial at dropshipunlocked.com/start, you get access to this challenge and you can just do one little thing every day. So like one micro task every single day that's laid out clearly, step by step. So you're not worrying about figuring everything out on your own, but you're also not overwhelmed with this huge list of things because we don't let you get overwhelmed. We essentially break it up into micro tasks so that step by step by step, you build your business, you build your store, you get your suppliers, and eventually by the end of it, you're standing at the finish line of the marathon and you've run the race without even really thinking about it because you just took steps along the way. So if you're feeling overwhelmed right now, whether it's yourself, Robbie, or anyone else listening to this, I'd recommend checking out our free trial for the Dropship Unlocked Accelerator. It genuinely is the answer to overwhelm. It's exactly why we created it. It's a great way to get started, take things one step at a time, reduce that feeling of overwhelm, and you can get started at dropshipunlocked.com/start.
Yeah, perfect question, Robbie, and great answer, Lewis, as always. Now on to a listener review that we'd like to highlight on the episode today, because we love to shout out reviews. If you've enjoyed the podcast, do let us know, because we may shout it out on a future podcast. So Michelle Bentham, I2V, has shared her thoughts, and Michelle said, this walkthrough is extremely helpful. I have now rewritten the script and will be making my calls next week. Excited to be taking control of my life and business. Thank you, Lewis. You've always really helped, and the community is the best. Any issues I face are always answered promptly, and rich, in-depth quality training is brilliant. 100% happy.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your review, Michelle. Really glad to hear that you've been enjoying the podcast and the program by the sound of things. Now, before we end this episode, can we ask a small favor of you? Leaving a review for our podcast helps us a lot, and it takes you just a few seconds, but your support keeps us motivated to bring you the best content every week. We'd love to hear what you think and share your review in our upcoming episode.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Dropship Unlocked podcast. We hope you are leaving with new insights and inspiration to fuel your entrepreneurial journey.
To kickstart your e-commerce business, head over to dropshipunlocked.com/start. It's the perfect place to start and get access to resources that will help you build your business from the ground up.
And don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more episodes packed with strategies, tips, and success stories. Plus, if you enjoyed this episode today, a 5-star review would mean the world to us, and you might even get a shout out on the next episode.
Thank you for choosing to spend your time with us today. We can't wait to bring you more insights on the next episode of the Dropship Unlocked podcast.